Welcome to Sustainable News. So what are the headlines? We spoke with Professor Wim Thiery about his comments on planting trees in Europe to boost rainfall. We also spoke with Dr. Jak Beula about the statue in London for the NHS at Whittington Hospital to honor the nurses that came from the African and Caribbean nations, 40,000 women in total, without whom the NHS surely would have failed. First, however, an article from Digital Health, and that is about the NHS app here in the UK. The COVID-19 app has been updated to reduce the number of pings. Basically, it means those getting pinged by the app will only have been in close contact with someone who has tested positively within the last 2 days. And the government is hoping this will reduce the number of people being told to isolate by the app. So this is about 2 weeks too late for me. I've just been isolating for over a week. Okay, the NHS, National Health Service, here in the UK, formed in July 1948, and that was in the aftermath of the World War II. At that point, there really was a severe shortage of qualified healthcare staff, and the answer was African Caribbean nurses. They were invited and they arrived en masse to Britain with the arrival of the HMS Windrush and other ships, and this all to assist the NHS. So it is statue at Whittington Hospital is a very positive course for the African Caribbean community in the UK. It's really a great moment to honor the work of those 40,000 women that helped to embed and establish the National Health Service. And I asked Dr. Jak Beula about the dates, obviously the delay because of the pandemic, and about the accompanying book, Nursing the Nation, which has an introduction from Her Majesty, the Queen.
And do you know who wrote the introduction to the book?
The Queen.
Ah, you are very good at this game. But yes, here's Her Majesty's introduction. There's 72 contributors to the book, from nursing practitioners, doctors, historical researchers, midwives, different authorities on the different disciplines of nursing history in this country, particularly with a diverse background. So the 10th of September, the statue, 7-foot high, 7-foot wide statue will be installed at Whittington Hospital with an invited guest of 73 to represent the 73 years since the NHS was founded. So outside there'll be wide screens. So we're expecting, hundreds of people to be able to watch the ceremony from the outside. Black nurses from Africa and the Caribbean, from the Commonwealth, were here before the Windrush arrived and before the foundation of the NHS. Mm-hmm. And there's so many evidence that's well documented and also highlighted in our book. But on the 5th of July, of course, when the NHS was founded, there were a few Africans and Caribbean people working in the NHS. The most famous of those are Mrs. Pratt, who was an African woman who is on record as being the very first Black person or African person of African heritage to work in the NHS. Truth is, there were a few others working in the NHS at the time it was born. However, there are no connections with people coming on the Windrush and going into the NHS. Mm-hmm. The Windrush is a symbolic bookmark of a time, of a period of mass migration from the Caribbean. And they've symbolized that generation from 1948 to 1973 as the Windrush generation. And of course, between 48 and 73, thousands of nurses populated the NHS. Very important to add, Peter, that there were other nurses. I mean, it wasn't just African and Caribbean nurses that were working in the NHS. Mm-hmm. There, of course, you had English people, and you had most notably the Irish, who were doing their job as well to prop up the NHS. So we have to doff our cap to them as well. But the African and Caribbean element was the game changer because, of course, there was an untapped resource that Clement Attlee and the like invited these nurses over, this generation over. And like I said, without them, and it's been acknowledged anyway, that the NHS would have floundered. It is 7 foot high and 7 foot wide to represent the 7 decades of service by these selfless NHS staff. But it also is a symbol of a woman of color, suckling or feeding or nourishing a baby. And that baby, of course, is the NHS. It's a wonderful piece of art, and it's made out of 16 pieces. And of course, the 16 pieces, again, represents the number 7, the 7 decades, 1 and 6 is 7. And all 16 pieces are designed by a number divisible by 7. So for instance, the circumference of the baby's head is 63 centimeters, or the gap between the top of the nurse's chin, top of her head and the nurse's chin is 49 centimeters. So it had to be magical. It had to be a piece of art that would stand the test of time. And I'm very honored to have been its creator.
Tree planting, deforestation. I spoke with Professor Wim Thiery. He made comments in an article from the BBC where they speak about the fact that planting extra trees will boost rainfall across Europe and benefit the action against climate change. So I quote from the article, from his comments: planting trees is certainly not a quick fix for climate change.
You can say we will need some of them if we want to end up living in a 1.5 degree world by the end of this century. But they cannot be a substitute for reducing our greenhouse gas emissions in the first place.
Professor Wim Thiery is from the Vrije University of Brussels, that is in Belgium, and he added that adding new trees or restoring lost forest will never compensate for the greenhouse gas emissions that are arising from the burning of fossil fuels. We need to stop generating those emissions in the first place.
The most cost-efficient way of tackling climate change and halting climate change is to stop generating those emissions in the first place. What needs to be done is actually basically rolling out these technologies that we already have on the table today. It's wind farms, solar panels, heat pumps, electric vehicles. All these technologies basically already exist today. We just need ambitious policies to implement them on massive scale. And that's where the real challenge lies today.
So I asked him about his comments, and I asked him about converting agricultural land to forest. I was just wondering if we don't need that land to grow food, perhaps.
These land-based mitigation techniques, they require a substantial amount of land. And the land has to come from somewhere. You cannot use, of course, pre-existing forests, so you have to rely on croplands, like either pasture lands or croplands themselves, agricultural lands in general. And there you come into conflict with other uses that are currently being made of the land, which is, for instance, food production. So the more you use the land for carbon land-based mitigation, the less land you have available for food production. There are these tensions between sectors.
Okay, next is privacy. Apple, the company, will, on this next iOS operating system, that's iOS 15, they will put a database on your iPhone, and that will detect certain very undesirable images on your device in certain circumstances. The first database they'll put on the iPhone is the CSAM database, which will check for child pornography when backing up to Apple iCloud services and soon third-party services. And that is absolutely great because it's awful, it's disgusting, it's against the law. But today it's the CSAM database. Tomorrow, very well, maybe the dissidents database, racial makeup, sexual preference, religious belief. You never know. Now, Apple is the first company that does so on your device. So you may say that's in my house without plausible cause, without a search warrant. What they do, however, does not affect me at all, nor would a database checking for sexual preference hashes or for my religious beliefs. So, hey, it's all good. Now, that said, in some countries, Taiwan flag, Winnie the Pooh memes, photos of police porn, all illegal. Painting your face black, reference to labs, gay people, yes, Mr. Cook, illegal. Death penalty, as a matter of fact, in quite a few countries. Bikinis are illegal in some countries. Now, are they going to comply with the law in those countries? Well, you may say, well, there's only one operating system. It's a global operating system, so that would never ever happen. However, according to The Verge, I'll put the article link right there, Apple already adjusted their iOS operating system in places like Russia. So you buy a new iPhone, and at the startup of your brand new shiny iPhone, screens will come up that strongly urge you to download certain apps in order to comply with Russian law. So that was my rant of the week, a shot on an iPhone.